Hello and welcome to the Ruth MacFit podcast, where we chat all things health, fitness, nutrition, and how to build habits that actually work with your life. Now, if you're enjoying these episodes, then it really helps if you like and you subscribe. And I absolutely love hearing from you. So please do leave a comment, maybe a 5-star review, and let me know what has resonated with you. Right, let's get into today's episode. Hello, welcome back. I am so happy to be here as always. I'm particularly happy because it's been lovely weather. And it turns out that the lovely weather can completely change our mood. And I know that members inside the app are very happy that they are currently able to hang out their washing. I even mowed the lawn the other day. What is this? We are definitely out of winter, or so it feels. I do suddenly realize quite often when I do these podcasts how old I'm starting to sound. Anyway, alas, there we go. Now, before I get onto the main topic of the podcast, which is all around making movement feel good, in particular, I'm going to focus more on strength training because I think often we're not doing that. I think a lot more people find it easier to get going with some form of cardio than strength training itself. So we will do a bit more of a focus on that. But before I get into that, I thought I would update you on my fat loss phase at the moment because I am sharing that journey. I'm currently on day 10 and things are going well. And I say things are going well. I've been consistent with my progress goals, which I shared with you a bit more about last week. So I'm eating my 3 meals a day. I had a delicious cake at the weekend, but I can be confident because I'm doing it that way that I am in a calorie deficit. I am weighing daily, and I thought I would share with you something that happened this week, which I did talk about on social media a bit. But I got up on Tuesday morning. As usual, I felt very puffy. So this engagement ring here on my finger, it normally moves quite freely. But on that day, it felt puffy. And I got on the scales and alas, all of that weight that I had lost is just gone back on. And overnight, because I think that was Tuesday and the day before had been one of my lowest of the whole time, I think. Yeah. So it literally had gone up overnight. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not worried about it. And I went and had a pint of water, did the PJ workout with members and headed out on this 4-mile run. And I got back from that run feeling good, obviously. And when I got back, I thought, I don't feel as puffy anymore as I did this morning, just out of interest. And I wasn't going to update this in the app, and I still haven't actually. But out of interest, I will just see what I weigh now. And I had lost 1 kilogram. Now, had I lost 1 kilogram of body fat in that hour or less than an hour? No. Had I pooed 1 kilogram? Unlikely, although going to the loo, emptying my bladder and bowels will make a difference, of course, to our weight, but I'd also drank a pint of water. But overnight, it can be, especially when we're hormonal, it can be quite normal to hold on to a bit of water. Our lymphatic system might not be, because we're not moving around, might be also not working at its full capacity. And then we go out for a run and we get things moving. Our fluid starts shifting. We breathe it out through the air that we're breathing, sweating a little bit out. We're emptying any of that excess that comes out of our muscles from the glycogen. I didn't want to go too scientific on it, but when we're eating carb-heavy meals and so on, we can hold on to a bit more water. And that's because with the glycogen that goes into our muscles from eating those carby-based meals, glycogen will attach to water. And I think it's like 1 gram of glycogen to 3 grams of water. And then when we start moving our muscles, when we start using that glycogen, we'll release that water. And then you'll either pee it out, breathe it out, whatever happens. So that can happen as well. And so when I came back from that run, it will have been a mixture of everything that meant I'd lost 1 kilogram. But it is a real eye-opener as to why we shouldn't really get so upset about what the scales say one day, because it's measuring a snapshot in time. That is everything that's currently in your body, any inflammation, like if you're hormonal, the water that you might be holding on to through that, what you've eaten, whether you've had a higher salt or higher carb meal, and the water that then you're holding through that. So loads of different things that are going on. And then it's not body fat. And traditionally, I haven't weighed. Well, I say traditionally, I did used to weigh years and years ago. But I also used to think that dieting wasn't working for me. And this is something I hear again and again, that no matter what I do, just nothing seems to work. And this week I've been reminded, because the last time I lost weight, which I'll talk about in a moment, but I didn't use the scales. This time I have, and it's reminded me of the fact that I'm like, this would have bothered me years ago. It would have bothered me. I would have felt like it wasn't working because the weight had gone back up. I'd have been really upset by that. And then I weighed myself again this morning and it was still back up. But again, I'm not worried. This is that time of the month where my weight can do that. And I also know that it's coming down again quite quickly. So this is water weight. So it is a snapshot in time. You've got stuff that's still in your digestive system, the food that's actually still in your stomach that you haven't processed yet, and that water. So please try not to get too upset by the scales. And I was also going to mention about the last time I lost weight, because it wasn't something I documented, as in it wasn't intentional weight loss. It was sort of intentional, but not intentional. And actually in that same year, I had taken some before photos, but given up on a diet, which I think is interesting. And at that point, it wasn't about fat loss. So in 2022, we moved back at the end of 2021 from Barbados. And I think that I was a bit sad, not just about moving back from Barbados, but loads of uncertainty. I wasn't really sure where we were definitely going to end up living. We were talking about moving abroad again. It was the year I turned 40. And I know I talk about my 40s being my best decade yet, and they are, but that year was a tough year. And for the first time in my life, I think I felt a bit sad. My hormone levels were completely off, and the doctors had been looking into that. Something wasn't quite right. So I didn't know whether I was feeling like that because of these hormone levels, or whether me feeling like that was causing these high hormone levels. And I gained quite a lot of weight during that time. And I think I didn't really share that I'd gained much weight because of how I was feeling in myself. And anyway, when I realized that whatever needed to change to sort my hormone levels out was me, it wasn't like this medical intervention that was going to help. And I started thinking about what would make me feel good. And that was giving myself some structure and routine and some certainty, because I had all these decisions that I was worrying about and I made those and so on. I didn't even know that I was eating less so much, but it did just start to happen. I just had that structure. I started eating my breakfast. I'd traditionally been skipping that or just eating whatever was around, even though I knew really that having plenty of breakfast would be good. I didn't think I trusted myself at that point, but I was fed up of doing it the way that I'd done it in the past. They always been like I was on a diet way. And so I just focused on feeling good. Anyway, I remember then going away and trying on a bikini and it being too big, and me thinking I think I've lost weight. But I'd lost the weight in such a healthy way with the habits I wanted to keep. And I hadn't weighed myself once during that time. And I hadn't been tracking calories. I'd literally done what I'm doing now. And that's why I know that the way I'm doing it and focusing on the healthy actions works so well. And it feels good. And the reason I gained a bit of weight over the winter wasn't because all of those things had gone. I've never gone back to where I was, but I gained a bit of weight over the winter. And that's literally just because I had been eating a little bit more, just a little bit more, but I'd still been eating my breakfast, lunch and dinner. But I'd been eating, if the boys had been having a bit of dessert, I was joining them more often. But I didn't get on the scales at all during that time. The scales were not needed. And actually, I have got those before pictures, but they were before I decided to make the change myself. But I think they are quite a good reference point. Maybe I'll share them with you at some point so you can just see. I didn't take any after pictures, but we've got after pictures. And actually, I've got after pictures from one of the holidays I went on afterwards where I didn't even realize that I'd lost weight. So let's get into today's episode, where we're going to be chatting more about movement, in particular strength training, like I said earlier, because there's probably 3 groups of people, I think, who could benefit from this episode. Someone who used to exercise quite a lot, maybe lost a bit of fitness and is now feeling like it's a constant battle. They're really struggling with it. Maybe you're someone who has never liked exercise. It feels like you've got a long way to go to build that strength. You don't think you could ever see yourself being someone who actually enjoys it. And then perhaps someone that does it, but easily loses motivation and worries about whether they're doing the right or wrong thing. I would say those sort of categories. Now, I think part of the reason that we can struggle with exercise is the language we're using and hearing about what we should do. Like, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Like, I got a message from a lovely lady on Instagram saying, like, what about trampette classes? I've seen one, it looks fun, but I don't know if it's something I should be doing. If it looks fun, you should do it, because of the fact that any movement that can make us feel good is going to be great. Like, it doesn't matter what the scientific papers say. I mean, I do think that class, is going to be good anyway, but it's more of a cardio thing. But regardless, if you enjoy it, it makes you feel good and it gets you moving, then fantastic. It might feel that you will be more motivated by going, I have to do this or this will happen. But actually the opposite is true when we look at self-determination theory. And this says that, like, doing something because it feels good or aligns with your values produces far more durable behavior change than that avoidance motivation. So doing it to escape a bad outcome. And this made me think also about the messaging out there. So the NHS will say you've got to do 2 strength sessions a week and 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio for long-term health. But only 25% of women are currently, I believe, meeting both those criteria. So we're not doing that. And then there's also research out there. I think it was a Journal of Frailty that I saw, and they've had this diagram, which I'll see if I can share in the show notes. I'll try. And it shows the fact that those who do some form of balance and strength training in adulthood are far less likely to end up in the disability threshold. That on its own isn't a motivation to start strength training. There are a lot of things online about doing it for your old lady body, and that's why they strength train. And I am with them. I think that's a brilliant reason to do it, but I don't think it's enough to make people do it now. I think it's very easy to say that. And I've said it before, yes, I'm doing it so that I'm not in the nursing home. Yes, and I agree with that. However, if I didn't enjoy it now, it would be very hard to continue doing it thinking that far into the future. And this makes me think about people that feel like they have a long way to go. If I think about the real reasons I'm strength training now, with the added benefit that it's going to have me feeling good in the future, it's because I like being strong. I like how it feels to be capable, to be able to get up hills and, running fitness. I like feeling fit. I like feeling strong. And the added thing about this is that I will then continue having these adventures later, but it's so much easier to do because I'm enjoying it now. And the other messaging that we see around this on social media, it's not to blame for everything. There's loads of great information. And I do think that a lot of people can be caught up in that identity of wanting to feel good later on. And that is fantastic. I just think you do need to look at what feels good now as well. But the other thing is needing to lift heavy. If I look at those women who currently aren't exercising and are a bit daunted by the prospect of starting strength training, and they see that this message about you have to lift heavy, you have to lift heavy. And I'm like, heavy's relative. Define heavy. Heavy, if you're just starting, is body weight. If you've been training for a while, then it might be heavier. But equally, I was chatting to my husband earlier, and he said he'd seen a trend on social media that was like, if you can't bench press for men 100 kilograms, then your child has 2 wives. I mean, it was a ridiculous statement, but that is even more ridiculous when you think about the fact that what's it in relation to? Like, are you talking like a man that weighs 150 kilograms of pure muscle, or a man that weighs 70 kilograms and is smaller, but still muscular, still strong? Like, again, there's an element of ratio. It's a dangerous message because it can feel like there's so far to go to get there. So do be careful with the language that you're using yourself and that you're hearing, and know that there are ways of making it feel easier to do now. I'll often talk about progress goals. We set progress goals inside the app, and that really does have us looking. So if we're talking about getting stronger, it has us looking at where we want to be. We want to be stronger. And then in an ideal world, you'd think about why that is, but you want to be stronger. And what actions do you think you need to be able to do to get there? And then we can focus on that. You're not expected to be able to walk in doing these things already. But when we start looking at the progress we've made, it can make such a big difference, because then instead of celebrating the fact that we are able to deadlift this amount or do this on our running goals or whatever it is, we can start enjoying it more. But it's very easy for me to say this. So I enjoy strength training. Like I said, I enjoy it because of how it makes me feel now. That doesn't mean I love every single session I go to. I enjoy my running. It doesn't mean I love every minute of every run, but I enjoy it because I like how it makes me feel afterwards. I like the fact it helps me get that fitness, and I like lots of things about it. I haven't always, mind. Again, back in that difficult year I mentioned earlier on, I was hating running. Running felt horrible. It felt like I'd lost all my fitness. And every single run, I was just going out trying to get faster. I was thinking about weight loss. And then when I stripped that right back and I set that intention that I still follow today of making it so I came back feeling better than I did when I went out, and allowing myself to be the level I am that day. If I need to walk, I can walk. If I'm able to push, I can push. It's meant that I was able to be consistent and I was able to improve, but I stopped adding that pressure to do more and more and more. But equally, now I'm at the point where I'm enjoying my running and I'm enjoying my strength training, and I can see the progress I've made there. When you first start, especially if you're somebody who hasn't strength trained at all and you're new to it, you might find that you want to quit, that you think you don't like it, that you're going to quit too early. And the reasons for that are DOMS. You might feel incredibly sore after that first session, unintentional soreness because your PT has set your program, but your muscles have never worked in that way before. And they're going to feel likely, through all best intentions, a bit sore. And this can happen when you change blocks in a workout plan as well. When you start doing new exercises, that soreness can come back. But it normally eases. And the next time you do that workout, you don't have it as much. It really does get better quickly, but you can be sore. And that can be a reason why you're like, this isn't for me. This isn't normal. My body isn't responding very well to this. The movements can feel quite unfamiliar. If you've never squatted before, it can feel odd. You might feel like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And again, that can be hard to kind of get to grips with. It's getting that mind-body connection going, and that can feel like a lot. So people might give up because of that. The comparison to others as well, which we're going to talk about again in a moment, but that can be a reason that people give up before they're seeing the outcomes of things that make it feel good. So we can be like, I don't like strength training, or I don't like exercising, but we're likely going to enjoy it more when we start seeing the positive impact. And out of interest, I did have a look into how long those things take. So if you're strength training for the first time or going back to it after a long time, the first 1 to 2 weeks are going to be more about learning the movements. You're not going to be expecting to see any changes in your body or physique. You might not even see any changes in any way. You might, because we hear people talking about newbie gains, where you start getting better at those movements, and then suddenly the weight that you're lifting seems to go up quite quickly because your body is understanding what is needed of it now. But the first 1 to 2 weeks, you're going to be learning those movements. And then by weeks 3 to 4, you'll probably already be starting to feel stronger. Your body's responding to that change. So you're starting to feel stronger. Then you can really start measuring your progress by either the amount of weight that you've lifted or how strong you're feeling generally. And that starts to feel good. Weeks 5 to 8, your strength is noticeably improving by that point. Those gains are happening. And then 2 to 3 months, that's when you are most likely, I think it can be kind of from the 6-week point. Again, you can be very muscular. Like I always joked in the past, I'm like, I've got a 6-pack. You just can't see it because there's a bit of body fat over it. But, but 2 to 3 months, you're going to start noticing those changes in your body. But we need to get through that time where you might not be noticing that physical strength. And I was talking briefly about progress goals, and that's where you can either measure your progress with, I've committed this month, for the next month, to going to the gym twice a week, or training at home twice a week. Commit to it for a full month, and then notice along the way, celebrate the fact that you have A, done what you said you're going to do, because that feels so good, and B, how good you feel for suddenly learning these new movements and being brave and all of those things. So celebrating that, and then also celebrating the fact that you're getting stronger, because within that month you should notice then that you're able to lift a bit heavier, you're feeling a bit better for that. So make sure that you're noticing the strength improving. Same with running. If you are not enjoying running at the moment, I spoke about the pressure you're putting on yourself. If you were to say, right, okay, I'm going to do Couch to 5K, for example. So the NHS and the BBC Couch to 5K is 9 weeks long, and it's meant to be getting you to build gradually up to 5 kilometers of running, or 30-minute sessions 3 times a week. I think 9 weeks is quite a short time to be getting to the point where you're running 10-minute miles for 3 miles, if that's kind of what they're saying. I think you could do it over 12 weeks and give yourself a bit more time. It might be that because you want to strength train as well, you do 2 runs a week and take a bit longer. Just because something says 9 weeks doesn't mean you need to take 9 weeks. But again, it's getting through those first few bits and making sure you're not pushing yourself so that you're dying every time, so that you can actually notice how good you're feeling for just getting out. Even if you're having to walk a bit longer, your rest periods are having to be a little bit longer before you can go again, but celebrate the fact that you're going out and you're doing it. And for me, one of the reasons running in particular felt rubbish was because my recovery felt rubbish. So I pushed myself so hard on those runs because I was so focused on my performance in each individual run that my recovery afterwards was so bad that I was then going into my next session feeling fatigued. So it is important that we do take time to listen to our body and yes, push yourself, but there will be sessions that are designed to push you a little bit more and sessions that are designed not to push you so much. And you have to listen to this and make sure that you are just thinking about how can I keep this sustainable? How can I keep it going, keep it consistent? I don't know if I've had a reply from the people that did mention this, but I was chatting about, starting small. And often when we have these big goals, say, I'm going to use an example of cleaning because I like the kitchen analogy. I've used it before. But let's say you go into your kitchen, it's after Christmas dinner, it's an absolute bomb site. And the thought of tackling that kitchen feels awful, overwhelming. You don't want to start. But then if you were to think of it, I say one surface at a time, but we could break it down even more. The idea of cleaning one single plate, not so much. That's okay. But I've heard lots of references to people breaking things down into smaller chunks. I don't know if you've ever been on a long journey and you've thought to yourself, I've got to drive like 600 miles Scotland to the south, and that feels like a lot. But you get to a point and you're like, the next stop is that services that I like. I'm thinking T-Bay or something like that here. And you can break it down into manageable chunks in your head, which makes it feel less overwhelming. And that actual literal journey in a car is similar to a journey that we're making when we're looking at behavior change. We're breaking it down into manageable chunks. We're not thinking too far ahead. The book that I've mentioned quite a lot, The Gap in the Game, talks a bit about this, about how when you're so focused on that outcome, you can feel like you've not achieved anything until you get there, and how we need to measure our progress, measure backwards. And that could be consistency, that could be strength, that could be fitness, noticing that you're walking up a hill a little bit more. But you do need to, at the beginning, before you notice those things, believe that it can become enjoyable for you. And the enjoyment comes once you can stick to that consistency. However, there are going to be ways of adjusting and tweaking to make it more enjoyable. Like if you're not enjoying the idea of exercise, it could be that you're dreading an hour-long session. So reduce it down, do what I've been doing with my members, break it down into 10 minutes in the morning. It doesn't necessarily need to be long. And if you're just starting out with strength training, that over the course of a week can make a huge difference. One of my members, she voice noted me yesterday to say that she had been in Boots and she was reaching down to grab something off the bottom shelf. And she realized as she squatted down that she had her rucksack on. She was like, oh, crikey, am I going to be able to stand up? Because in the past, she wouldn't have been able to. Anyway, she said she sprang back up, just like leapt back up. And she's only been doing, and I say only, she's been doing them consistently, but she's been doing the PJ workouts. This is 5 to 10 minutes. It's not very long, but she's done it consistently. And we can often feel like we've got this big hour-long workout to do. But if you were to say to yourself, okay, I just need to start with 5 minutes, you might then continue to do more, and that's fine. But keep the pressure lower, make the barrier to entry smaller, and you're more likely to begin to start with. And again, it still counts because you weren't going to do anything, and now you've done something, and that's always going to beat it. A lot of people think, what's the point? It's not enough anyway. If you look at an optimal week, I don't think as midlife women that we often get an optimal week where something doesn't come our way that messes with things. But when we build the habits, so say you do want to strength train, I currently strength train on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It is such a habit for me now. If I was just starting out and I wanted to strength train on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and I knew that my motivation to do an hour-long session is going to be low, I would be thinking, okay, start with 10 minutes and see how you get on. Like, just do 10 minutes, because then if you can get that habit going, you can increase the time over time. You can look to extend that. And often people will start with the PJ workouts and then they'll find themselves doing more. Like, the ripple effect from movement is insane. Like, I think I heard somewhere about if they could bottle exercise as a medicine, it would change the world because of the impact it can have. And this isn't just physical impact. Those 5-minute pajama workouts, one of the reasons they're working so well in the morning is because of the change in our mood as we go about our day. A lot of women that I'm working with are finding they're doing more because they're feeling better. So sometimes when we break it down into that small amount and it's just enough to boost our mood, we find ourselves doing more anyway. So just starting is often the point. And then you can be proud of yourself for doing that. And obviously I said time there, but it might be you go, I'm just going to do one set of squats. I'm just going to start by doing some bicep curls. I'm just going to do some body weight, whatever it is. But you start where you are with what you can do. And then the win is I did today's workout instead of I'm now a strong person. And I do think it would be remiss of me to not talk about identity here, because I think we can hold a lot of beliefs about ourselves that we've carried through life, that you're somebody that doesn't enjoy exercise, that you're naturally unfit, that you have never been consistent. And that in itself can have an impact on how much you enjoy it. Because, we like to do things we're good at, but we're not meant to be good at them straight away. I think, again, that comes into that comparison as well. We're scared to put ourselves out there because there is this fear of failure. We've always identified as someone that hasn't done that. It might be that you feel like you're not sporty, you lack motivation, or you've never been good at exercise. There's a concept in psychology called the growth and the fixed mindset, which I think should come in here. Someone with a fixed mindset feels that their abilities are set in stone. And if you find something hard, you might think it's just evidence that you were right all along, you're not good at this. And those with a growth mindset understand that their abilities can improve with practice, that they're not meant to be good immediately. And they see those struggles as part of learning. They're curious about why they found things hard and how they can make it easier. And they understand that the reason they're finding it hard is because they're learning, they're new. And then this mindset alone can determine whether somebody continues or whether they give up. And maybe PE lessons back in the day are partly to blame for this, or actually being compared to others. If you had those comments coming at you, maybe you were labeled as being a lazy person, but there can be many reasons and it is understandable, but we can change. We really can. I read a brilliant book a while back called Personality Isn't Permanent. And the reason I know personality isn't permanent, and I'm sure you do too, is because I am definitely not the same person now than I was years ago. Like, I'm completely different. And I think it's called the end of history illusion. I believe it's called that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's like, we can see how much we've changed in the past, but we think we're a finished product. We don't see that there's changes possible in the future, but we're always changing. The person you are today is not the same as the person in the future. And I think as an adult, it happens less because we push ourselves into new situations less. As a child, we're kind of made to do these new things, but change is possible. So be careful with identity. Now are a few questions that you can ask yourself that I actually heard in a book that Switch, it's called, that I'm reading at the moment, Switch. And I'll read them to you and you can think about whether you might have a fixed or a growth mindset. And if you have got a fixed mindset with something, or maybe you've got a couple of answers in each, one fixed, one growth, change can still happen. You just need to believe it can. So listen to these statements and see which ones you relate to. Number 1, you are a certain kind of person. There's not much that you can do that will change that. Number 2, no matter what kind of person you are, you can always change substantially. Number 3, you can do things differently, but the important things about who you are can't really change. And number 4, you can always change basic things about the type of person you are. Now, obviously, I did talk about how change is possible, but you do need to embrace that and believe it, even though those messages you've told yourself in the past might be there. And I feel like if we're talking about identity, that's something that the McFitties, who are my members, are really good at. They're really good at being curious. We're not expecting people to come into the community already able to do something. Like, what would be the point in coaching if you come in already able to do everything, already able to be fit, strong, doing the workout, self-motivated? No. There's no expectation. But being curious and a willingness to learn, I think really does summarize the McFitties. They are incredible for doing that. Now, there is another huge barrier to starting exercise that I briefly mentioned, and that's the fear of looking a bit silly and looking a bit stupid. Everyone will kind of see that you're new, that you don't know what you're doing. Maybe you used to be fit and you're worried about people seeing how much fitness you lost. That's something I see again and again. And there's a Buddhist mindset called Shoshin, which is your beginner's mindset. And that's really allowing yourself to go in and almost pretend that you're a complete beginner, to take those lessons in. And if you are a complete beginner to strength training, there can be this fear that everyone else knows what they're doing, but they haven't always. People aren't always going in like that. But equally, seeing this as an exciting opportunity where you are allowed to be the beginner, where you're allowed to know what you're doing, where you can go and ask the questions, can be quite liberating in itself. And those that feel like they have lost their fitness, they're not as where they used to be, they should know better, those types of things, that are worried about what others think. Actually, that beginner's mindset can be really useful as well, to just try and almost take yourself back to the beginning. But I want you to remember that if you have been fit or strong in the past and you're starting again, you're not starting again. You've got all of those years of experience behind you already. Regardless of how much strength you might have lost, you have done it before. You've got that knowledge. You might be doing it a different way this time, but you can still learn on what did and didn't work that time. And you've still got that experience of lifting weights or running or whatever it was you're doing. You're not a complete beginner. If you're a complete beginner, then you would have no experience behind you. So know that you're further along than you likely think. Give yourself credit for that. You've done some work before. Life will have changed. There'll be good reason why the fitness might have gone. And it's not something to beat yourself up about. It's something to learn from, to move on from. So when we're thinking about what we can do to make ourselves enjoy movement more, I think take the pressure off is one, but make it more enjoyable. So if you're ever in doubt and you're thinking, I don't really like exercising this way, ask yourself, what can I do that will make it more fun? Because there's normally something. Maybe it's doing it with a friend. Maybe it's putting on your favorite podcast or audiobook when you're doing it. Maybe it's doing what I did with my long run and start running to meet my husband for coffee. I call it my brunch run, but we rarely actually have brunch because I do struggle to eat a lot straight after my run. I do need to eat something at that time. So I meet him and we normally have a coffee. I might go and get a cake or whatever it is. And it's not as a reward for the running. It's just that this nice feeling, just everything. I'm running somewhere. It's like a purpose to my run. And I also listen to audiobooks on those long runs, which again, I think it takes me into a different world. I think otherwise there's a chance I would just be inside my own head, like thinking about everything I needed to do, and it wouldn't be so fun. So do take a moment and make sure you're looking around you, taking everything in, and just realizing this is nothing that anyone is making you do. You don't have to do any of these things, but you might want to because of how good they'll make you feel. So remember that. And I'll leave you on that note. But also leave something in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling about exercise. Is there something that you've done that changed it for you, made it suddenly seem more enjoyable? Did it take a little while? Give me some feedback. I would love to hear how you have got on. Until next time. Goodbye. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, do make sure that you're following or that you've subscribed so you don't miss out on the next one. And if you want some support putting this into practice, then come and join us inside the Ruth McFit app. This is where we focus on building strength, confidence, and consistency in a way that feels good and that fits your life. All the links will be in the show notes.